successful ISS resupply missions to make this incredible contribution to the Orion spacecraft. So the service module will be a very critical part to the Orion spacecraft. It will provide power, it will provide thermal control, and most importantly, it will provide propulsion to the crew module.
Building on the robotics technology we developed to support the space shuttle program and then to assemble the space station, Canada's developed a next generation Canadarm. This is a state-of-the-art suite of robotics prototypes that will be able to support the critical next steps in exploring the solar system.
У нас в России есть такая поговорка, что один ум хорошо, а два еще лучше. Но 2 и 3 это гораздо лучше, потому что работая в кооперации международной, люди гораздо лучше начинают понимать друг друга.
Better understanding and a common goal combine for a great future out there.
And once more, a live look at the pad. We're 17 minutes, 20 seconds and counting away from launch. And again, this is going to be Jack Fisher's first time flying into space after he was selected as a NASA astronaut more than 7 years ago. You know he's an astronaut and an Air Force colonel and a fighter pilot, but here's 5 things you don't know yet about Jack Fisher.
When I was 18, I won the White Star Bobcat Rodeo in Denver, Colorado. So I grew up on a construction family, and as soon as you could walk, you were working for Dad. But since I was the smallest of the 4 kids and the least useful with a shovel, he usually put me in equipment. So by the time I was 18 and could legally drive equipment, I'd been driving for quite a while. In fact, I don't think I'll ever have as many hours in airplanes as I do in tractors, but after 6 months in space, hopefully I'll get a little closer. So I have been married twice. And in June, I'm going to get married a 3rd time to the same girl. When you have someone as awesome as my wife, you do everything you can to keep showing her every day that you want her around. So we're going to actually renew our vows on our 20-year anniversary from orbit. I am a hopeless sap for romantic movies. My favorites are An Affair to Remember and Sleepless in Seattle, but pretty much we camp out in front of the Hallmark Channel every Christmas and Valentine's Day. It's pretty sad. I'm not a very big fan of sweets, so my wife actually makes me bean burritos smothered with green chili and cheese for my birthday. It's just like a restaurant that I used to go to as a kid named Senior T's, and she recreates it for every birthday. Puts the candle right there in the middle of the burrito. My favorite thing to do with my family is camping. We actually had a travel trailer for about 8 years, and those are the best memories I have with my family. Because when you go out into the nature, as my wife says, you have to unplug and you concentrate on each other. So they really are great memories, and I cannot wait until I'm a grandpa and I can kidnap my grandkids and take them camping.
We have 2 fish. Yes, his nickname.
And definitely be sure to follow Jack at those social media sites during his time on orbit. A group of NASA representatives are there in Baikonur, just a short distance away from the launch pad. For a quick update on activities there, why don't we go now to NASA Public Affairs Officer Rob Navius.
Dan, as the harsh winter of the Central Asian desert has yielded to spring, everything is in readiness for the first Soyuz launch of the year of a crew to the International Space Station. Here at Baikonur, preparations have gone exceedingly well for today's launch and the fast-track trip to the station by Yurchikhin and Fisher. NASA's delegation attending the launch is led by Bill Gerstenmaier, the Associate Administrator for Human Exploration, and Dan Hartman, the ISS Deputy Program Manager. A large Russian space industry delegation is also on hand, including the head of the Russian Federal Space Agency, Igor Komarov. It has been a long time since a Soyuz launch featured only 2 crew members. In fact, you would need to go back to April 2003, when Yuri Malenchenko, now a top manager at the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center, And NASA's Ed Lu launched as the Expedition 7 crew with an open seat on the Soyuz spacecraft. Today, it appears to be clear sailing for this two-man crew, with temperatures in the mid-70s. The final minutes of this countdown tick off the clock. Again, we are all set for launch. And that's it now from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. Dan, back to you at Mission Control in Houston.
And thanks again. That was NASA Public Affairs Officer Rob Navius with a quick report in from Baikonur, where we're getting continued live views of the rocket, just the clock counting down to the launch of the Soyuz MS-04 crew to the International Space Station. Now, though, before we get to the launch, let's take a moment once more to learn a little bit more about Jack Fisher and his road to becoming an astronaut.
Okay, then let's do just that.
Going through my whole life, I've never necessarily been the smartest guy or the fastest or the best pilot, but I could always outwork anybody. So I came from what was then a small town, Louisville, Colorado, the fifth generation of Fisher to grow up in that town, and everybody had been a contractor. You know, on the construction site, there's one goal, and that's to get the job done. So I was the smallest, the youngest of the four kids. Dad always said, well, you're not worth much on a shovel yet, but I'll put you in the Bobcat. I was always the kid who was driving the tractors and the trucks and the trailers and everything, and I was also the one who would upkeep them. At night, I would stay late, and I would clean them, and I would change the oil, and I loved my machines. And really, that has followed me through, certainly as a pilot, and now as an astronaut, working with machines and being kind of in tune to how they're operating and what you need to do to get them at their peak efficiency. I think that has followed me my entire career. When I was 6, there's actually a picture of me and my siblings. So we're right next to the Saturn V. You know, I just looked up at this ginormous rocket and fell in love with the whole idea. I really chased that dream as I grew up and wanted to serve my country, went to the Air Force Academy. But it wasn't until my sophomore year at the Air Force Academy where it really became a passion. My dad was dying of cancer, and I had gone home kind of on his last bit of time, and I said, Dad, I'm going to come home. I want to help with the family company, and I just feel like I'm in the wrong place up there. He's like, man, your head has always been in the stars, and there's no way you're coming home. I dare you to dream. For me, on the launch, you know, I'm going to go to work. I'm going to get to orbit, and as soon as, you know, everything deploys and we're happy, I'm going to look out that window and just take a little minute and enjoy that moment. I will be thinking about, probably thinking about Dad. He was gone before I became who I am. You wanted him to see you become something. And so, I'll be thinking of him. I'm Jack Fisher, and as an astronaut, I'm just one small part of the overall effort to explore space.
And then again, one more time, a look at Jack Fisher, who's going to be spending the next couple of months in space. He'll be a flight engineer of Expedition 51 and 52 before he comes home with Fyodor Yurchikhin and Peggy Whitson this upcoming September. But for now, we're going to stick with our live views of the rocket on the pad there in Baikonur. Right now, we're under 10 minutes, 9 minutes, 37 seconds and counting to be exact until liftoff. Again, that's targeted for 2:13 and 44 seconds is the instantaneous launch time, 3:13 a.m. Eastern Time. Soyuz vehicle, the gyros, the onboard flight data recorders will soon be activated. Rocket is fully fueled about 3 hours prior to launch. The crew members have been on board for some time now. Fyodor Yurchikhin in the center seat, the Soyuz commander, and Jack Fisher to his left as the flight engineer for the Soyuz craft today. Here's an in-cabin view. You can, again, Fyodor at the bottom of your screen, Jack Fisher at the top. And floating there just in front of Fyodor, you can see the it's a talisman that every Soyuz crew will float in front of them. That's actually a zero-G indicator. So once they're actually in orbit and they're experiencing microgravity, you'll see that start to float, and that's the crew's best signifier to see that they've made it into space, aside from no longer being atop a rocket. But for the crew members, it's mostly just kind of standing by now as we continue to count down 8 minutes, 10 seconds away from the planned launch. Sunny day there in Baikonur, as is typical during these spring launches. Just a light breeze, about 73 degrees Fahrenheit, as reported by NASA's Rob Navius, who's with friends, family, and other managers from NASA there, just about a mile away from the launch pad. Again, the whole process today will take just under 9 minutes, about 8 minutes and 45 seconds from liftoff to when the crew is in orbit. We'll see the first stage, which consists of those 4 strap-on liquid-fueled boosters in the core stage, firing for the first several minutes. And then after that, those 4 strap-on boosters will drop away. The core stage will continue to fire. Once the second stage is complete with its work, the third stage will ignite, pushing the second stage away and carrying these astronauts into their preliminary orbit. Then following that, the Soyuz will detach and begin its 6-hour chase down of the International Space Station. At this point in the countdown, the Soyuz first and second stages, those second stage engines ready for launch. Telemetry has been received from the rocket, indicating that all the primary and backup systems are ready for launch. Any moment now, we should be hearing that the launch key has been inserted. Yes, they do use an actual physical key down at the blockhouse there in Baikonur for the launch. Once that's inserted, it'll transition the launch sequence into automatic mode. And again, so far not tracking any issues. Everything just reported from the ground control teams there in Baikonur, nominal or normal. You'll hear the word nominal quite a bit. That's always a good indication. Everything going according to plan. 6 minutes, 5 seconds and counting until liftoff.
I mean, one guy put together a video of the launch pad in Terry's. It was like just every time they said nominal, it's like a 3-4 minute long video.
Again, just got the confirmation the launch key has now been inserted. That'll transition the launch sequence into its automatic mode. 5 minutes, 30 seconds and counting down now. Launch control should be reporting on the range shortly, expecting it to be clear and the Soyuz rocket ready to begin its journey.
You don't really expect things to be moving around that much on the steppes of Kazakhstan.
Ground measurement system is activated by Run 1 command. Combustion chamber nitrogen purge.
So now the combustion chamber nitrogen purge, so using nitrogen to remove any excess gases from the combustion chamber prior to the ignition. And
which
again,
is done by basically having giant matches stuck up the engine
for
back.
several seconds before the vehicle actually lifts off. It's held in place by a series of launch locks that are essentially only holding the rocket up and in place by using the weight of the rocket itself. So once those engines are able to overcome that force and begin lifting the rocket, you'll see it begin ascending from the launch pad. But you will see those engines fire for several seconds before liftoff actually occurs. 4 minutes and counting until launch. At this point, the onboard system is getting switched to onboard control, and the cockpit displays for Commander Fyodor Yurchikhin are all going to get activated, and the crew members, if they haven't already, at this point will always close their helmets, putting them on their suits. Oxygen no longer inside the cabin. And the fuel lines will also be purged along with the combustion chamber, as we just heard, that used using nitrogen just to fireproof
it seems
them,
the dog is
getting
getting in the way
excess
a bit.
vapors of the fuel and the oxidizer. Still getting good in-cabin views of your Chicken and Fisher.
Oxidizer and fuel drain. And safety belts are closed.
And so all fuel lines going into the vehicle now terminating the vehicle, ready for launch.
Getting good views of the Soyuz there. Well, less than 5 minutes away. See, we're rather close to liftoff. I mean, we'll know once the gantries start retracting.
Booster propellant tank
umbilicals.
pressurization initiated.
So the booster tank now being pressurized. This helps to optimize that flow of fuel and helps to add some structural support to the rocket itself. 2 minutes, 18 seconds away from launch. One minute, 45 seconds away from launch. Still everything tracking well. Vehicle, the rocket, all in good shape. Getting good calls from Russian flight control teams down there in Baikonur in Kazakhstan. 1 minute, 30 seconds.
Those people seem awfully close to the Soyuz. Or maybe it's just a telephoto lens.
And 1 minute and counting. Soyuz now going to switch
60
over to
seconds.
internal power. And we'll have auto sequence.
Pretty
start.
sure one of the external umbilical towers should retract / separate,
Timer
depending on
initiated.
how you want to say it.
Vehicle to internal
And there we go,
power.
first gantry
There's the
back.
call. The vehicle now on internal power. The first umbilical tower separating
Umbilical
from
tower.
the booster.
And the second one separates just before engine. Ignition. Okay,
Just about 20 seconds
retracting
until
out the
launch.
second gantry. Should it boost launch? So second gantry back, engine ignition.
And
Yep,
there's
the
the
engine's
second
having nice, I'm pretty
umbilical
sure.
separating. That signifies about 30 seconds or so
Yep,
from
the
launch.
engines are definitely
You can see
on.
the engine starting to ramp up.
Engine.
The engine's
And-
firing, now building up to flight speed.
And
And
takeoff,
liftoff. Jack
liftoff.
Fisher and Fyodor Yurchikhin on their way to the International Space Station.
And there she goes.
Vehicles cleared the tower.
What
Getting
tower?
good
There
first
was
stage
no tower.
performance. That Soyuz delivering about 930,000 pounds of thrust from those 4 strap-on engines in the core.
So later today, the Chinese will be launching a resupply mission to the
Getting good performance
the
calls,
Tiangong
nominal
2.
or normal so far for the first stage, continuing to operate well.
So I'm not sure
Pretty
if that
clear
will
day
be
there in
broadcast,
Baikonur,
but
so getting
we'll
great
see.
views of the rocket as it flies across the Kazakh sky.
And roll page yaw on nominal. The crew is feeling good. Copy, Olympus.
So already 70 seconds since liftoff, the vehicle already moving at over 1,100 miles an hour. And continuing to get those good performance calls, you'll hear yaw, pitch, and roll, basically the orientation of the rocket. Want to hear nominal, and that's what we're hearing. Everything going well with the Soyuz so far. On board, you can see the crew members still doing well. Again, if you go to your Chicken on the bottom there, and then NASA's Jack Fisher on the top.
Yes, Roscosmos has also made an animation kind of during the launch. Yep,
we've got
the
confirmation that
system
the escape
and the
tower has
boosters.
been jettisoned and the first stage has been jettisoned. Again, those 4 strap-on boosters have completed their job, dropped away. The vehicle already at an altitude of about 28 statute miles. Soyuz rocket traveling at about 3,350 miles an hour. Thumbs up from Jack Fisher. Everything continuing to go great so far with this launch. The vehicle under the power now of the core stage, or the second stage, and that's going to continue to fire until about 4 minutes and 48 seconds into the flight. So another 2 minutes and change from now.
Second stage, thrusters are operating nominally.
And fairings up.
Getting confirmation the launch shroud has been jettisoned, so the Soyuz vehicle now exposed. Everything going right per the timeline so far with today's launch. Second stage continuing to perform great from all the reports coming in. Just past the 3-minute mark since liftoff. At this point, the Soyuz already traveling over 4,700 miles per hour.
And we have the controlled.
You can see sunlight pouring in now from a window just over Jack Fisher's shoulder. That now possible with that launch shroud being jettisoned.
Or fairing, depending on what you want to call it.
Thrusters are operating.
Everything performing as expected. That core stage of the Soyuz, 56 feet in length, 13.5 in diameter, has a single engine with 4 fuel chambers, and provides between 178,000 and 222,000 pounds of thrust, depending on the altitude of the vehicle. And it burns for about 3 minutes and 28 seconds. It's going to burn until the 4-minute 43-second mark, and then it'll use what's known as a hot stage technique. So the third stage will actually ignite while the second's still burning. That's why, again, the Soyuz rocket has that open lattice-like structure in between the second and third stages, and we'll be seeing that shortly. Continuing to get good calls, 4 minutes, 12 seconds and counting since liftoff.
All right.
260 seconds. Parameters are nominal. 270 seconds. Standing by for Decca 2.
Just got confirmation the second stage
second
separated
stage
from the Soyuz rocket,
and
third stage
ignition.
firing.
We have separation of the second stage. Yes, we confirm.
And confirmation the third stage engine has ignited, and now powering the Soyuz into its
He
preliminary
just got really
orbit.
excited there for a few seconds.
That core
Not
booster
really
separates at
bothering
an
to
altitude
sneeze.
of about 105 miles. The Soyuz now propelled by the single engine of the Soyuz's third stage, providing about 67,000 pounds of thrust, and is going to burn for the next 4 minutes and 2 seconds.
330 seconds. Third stage thrusters operating nominally.
Nominal equals good.
$360 seconds. YPR normal. Air pressure is 782. The crew is feeling good. Copy.
Getting reports the crew feeling good. 6 minutes, 30 seconds since liftoff. Everything continuing to go great again. The Soyuz's third stage now powering it.
390 seconds.
It's going to continue to operate until 8 minutes and
For another
45
2
seconds
minutes, I think.
post liftoff.
A bit
so
over.
Another 2 minutes under the third stage, and then the rocket's job will be done, and the spacecraft will be in its preliminary orbit.
Four 430 seconds. Third stage thruster operating nominally.
1.5 minutes roughly until cut off of the third stage.
Again, all the calls, everything going well so far with this morning's launch. Keep your eye on the dog floating just in front of Fyodor Yurchikhin. Again, that's going to be our zero-G indicator. So once they're in their preliminary orbit and they start experiencing microgravity, you'll see that start to float, just like everything else inside the vehicle, including the crew members themselves, will shortly. We're 7 hours, 54 minutes since launch. Vehicle traveling in excess of 13,500 miles
Jesus
an hour.
Christ, this 7 hours have flown by.
Again, as a reminder, once they are delivered into orbit, a series of commands that are pre-programmed will execute, and all of the antennas will deploy along with the solar arrays.
Stabilization nominal.
The third stage should be cutting off in just about 25 seconds.
So a bit less than half a minute.
510 seconds. Everything is nominal.
And with the telltale jolt, you can see the third stage has cut off and separated. There's a great view of that dog. You can see it's floating now, so the crew members now exposed to that microgravity environment. With the third stage shut down,
that was the launch
at
of,
an altitude of about
I think it's like Soyuz MS-05.
statute miles.
I'll check now. So yeah, 1,025, goodbye.